Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Game Junk Podcast, episode 186, recording on Sunday, March 24th, 2024. My name is Frank.
My name is Sean.
And my name is Andrew.
And on today's show, we'll be talking about the new trailer and breakdown for 1943, Rise of Hydra. Pardon me, Marvel 1943, Rise of Hydra.
For a minute there.
Almost messed up.
Because earlier I was thinking, wasn't one of the Capcom shooting games 1943? What happens there? Well, but Marvel 1943.
It's interesting though, because like I know you always like to make sure you have the Marvels or the Marvel at the start of the title. I don't actually know, like I don't know. It's weird. Like I see on like one of the articles I'm looking at, they just call it 1943 Rise of Hydra in the headline, but the trailer says Marvel 1943. I don't know what the official title is.
I don't know either. I also, for the record, do not care. I just say it because I think it's funny when you go to look these games up in the store, it always has Marvel in the title, which for alphabetizing your game collections is very annoying, and I hate it. Anyway, we might even get into some of the State of Unreal talk as well. It might bleed into that. I don't know. And maybe some what we played, including, for me anyway, Rise of the Ronin and Dragon's Dogma 2.
Or a Rise game. A lot of Rise games.
That Rise. Everything's a Rise. How does this keep happening? Are we that devoid of any originality in like naming and marketing? It's embarrassing.
Yes, yeah, I mean, I know we've joked about it before, but it's really coming to a head. Like, it's just crazy how many there are.
It's out of control. It has to be stopped.
Yeah, let's go back to the fall of something. We need falls of something. Come on.
I still think a parody game. I didn't even think of the fall. The rise of the fall of the shadow of something. It happened. A comedy game. Let's do it.
Yes.
Okay, so State of Unreal at GDC this week. They showed the 1943 trailer, Rise of Hydra, which I just saw the trailer, and then you guys were talking about, I hadn't watched the State of Unreal yet, that there was a breakdown with Amy Hennig where they were talking about a bunch of the features and the engine, and that was pretty awesome too. So, I mean, for me, I'll just briefly say, I thought the trailer was really good. And it's the first game I can think of that, maybe you guys can think of other ones, but matches the cinematic quality and visual fidelity of AAA Sony games like The Last of Us and God of War. Other games come close. They kind of have their own vibe. This is the closest thing I've seen to matching one of those games from a non-Sony studio. So maybe you guys have other examples of that, but what did you guys think of the trailer and some of the breakdown?
Well, so I mean, this had been announced before, right? Like at least I don't know if we'd seen anything from the game, but at least it was known that Amy Hennig was working on this game, that it was Captain America, Black Panther, that it was set during World War II, all of which sounded really cool to me. So yeah, just seeing the trailer, it was pretty impressive. Like, I mean, I agree that it's certainly on par with, if not better than the Sony stuff, which is kind of like the top, like that's where the bar is set for, in my opinion, right now.
I don't disagree. My only like qualifier there would be the last big Sony one was God of War, which was made for PS4 and like PS5. So I assume Sony has tech that whatever is on their next PS5 game will be equivalent to a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, and PS5 Pro potentially coming out as well, but yeah, so I think for me, the thing that really impressed me the most was probably the facial animation stuff. It's kind of hit that point now where it's, like feature film quality, definitely like almost past the uncanny valley now. Like it's really good.
And I'm playing these open world games that feel quite dated in a lot of ways. I still like them, but half of the games I play with big budgets, like the lip syncing never matches. It's always all over the place. Not that I care that much, but it is a big difference. You know, when it matches perfectly, it's capturing facial animations like as spot on. So I was super impressed with all of the performance capture stuff in this.
Yeah, I would say the lip syncing for me as well. Just even there's like this problem with lip syncing where you almost have to like pre-process the audio ahead of time to get it to match up. Otherwise, sometimes it's a bit off. It seems, and I think that's what's happening in like every game up to this point. There's just something they haven't been able to solve. I don't know what the technical limitation is. I don't know why it's happening like this. It seems like a solvable problem, but it seems like every game or most games have this problem where the lip syncing is just a bit off, and it does really take away from the experience. But this game looked incredible. The metahuman models really are super expressive. I don't know how much. I know in some of the stuff they talk about the metahuman being able to adjust all the bones. I'm not sure the process. It'll be interesting to really see the process. I know some of the guys I work with have started looking into the metahuman stuff, and it's pretty powerful. I would really like to explore with it a bit more and actually figure out how many controls you have on the face and how it all ties in. I know you probably have to buy some sort of like third-party lip syncing software in order to tie that in. It'd be interesting to see which one kind of they're using. I don't know if they mentioned it. The only thing about the trailer is I wish there was like a little more of a hint of what the gameplay is going to be. I think, you could argue maybe there was like a little gameplay in like when he's walking a bit, or maybe when he's like throwing his shield, he hits a couple guys. Maybe that was gameplay, but it's hard to tell because it also looks so good. It's hard to tell if it is actually in game or not. So,
well, one thing you could say for sure, they repeatedly said this is, I guess they did this reveal a bit later, but it's running in engine. But that's in engine on, I would assume, a super high-end PC, not a PS5 equivalent.
Yeah. It would definitely have the top of the line, whatever the 4090 or whatever the top of the line NVIDIA is right now. And definitely beefed up RAM, beefed up CPU, all that stuff. But I mean, it was neat that at the end of the sort of tech talk, they kind of, exited full screen of the cinematic, and you could see the editor running, which is pretty impressive because you do have overhead from the editor running to show this stuff. So the fact that it still looked that good in a full screen, like editor viewport window, was pretty impressive. And yeah, I was really impressed with everything I saw there. The cloth deformation stuff they were showing on the leather uniform of Captain America was really impressive. I think you can achieve that without kind of like metahuman stuff, but still takes a lot of work to get that stuff just right. And actually, the other thing from the tech talk that really impressed me, that I'm sure you could see in the trailer if you look really closely, but they talked about the smoke from the fire that was in the can.
Drum? Yeah.
And I think, what did he call it? He called it heterogeneous volumes for smoke. So it's not really a particle effect. It's like some sort of other effect. I need to look into this because it looked really, really good. And like he said, normally when you have just like a particle effect for smoke, you don't really have that voluminous feel to it. And especially with the lighting, you don't really get the shadows casting properly. And in this, I mean, the shadows on the ground, the shadows on the smoke, which was the most impressive, like it looked really, really good. I could have stared at that forever. It was kind of like, reminded me of like the first time I was looking at I think Red Dead Redemption was the first time when I just stared at a skybox for like 10 minutes because I was so impressed with it. And I got the same feeling from this smoke. Like it's just so real looking. It's really incredible.
Yeah, I mean, it is, debatable how much of that is loaded in the scene when they're showing some of those things, and how
like pre-baked, you mean? Like pre-baked cycle?
Not even like how much other geometry is loaded within this little small scene. And even though they were doing it in engine, were they swapping for different demos for different computers that are running? I mean, like for the drum smoke, you really just had a limited viewport as to what was happening. So it could have been everything bumped up to the highest settings.
Yeah, I don't know. The new nanite stuff and the new lumen stuff. Like, so nanite is for geometry and lumen is the lighting, the global illumination. And it is it's really impressive tech.
Yeah, I mean, they showed like all how low poly some of the actual scenes are with the nanite system, and I mean, don't get me wrong, it's super impressive. If this ends up running at this level on a PS5, like it's going to be a big deal.
Yeah, I guess that's the question too, is how will this look on a PS5? It's hard to say, but I don't know. I think there was rumors of the PS5 Pro coming out with like little bump in graphics power and
I'm sure
CPU power.
Xbox will have an equivalent at some point too.
Yeah,
Like,
so I wonder, like, you might get a little bit of a bump like that towards this stuff. But yeah, that is a
there'll
good
be
point.
a version of Nanite and Lumen that make it to Unreal 3 so it can run on Switch or the next something like.
Yeah, 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 yeah. This game is definitely not going to run on the Switch. But I mean, like, there are games that use Nanite and Lumen that are shipped right now. So
Yeah, I know. I'm just kidding. I'm just like, I understand that Unreal games ship on the Switch. It was just a reflection of how bad the Switch is.
yes.
Bad technical joke. My thoughts are probably repetitive for me, but number one, this did not look like an Unreal game. When I saw that Chronos game later in the presentation, and when I played Immortals of Avium, you can tell they're Unreal games right away. This had different lighting, color palettes, and so
When you say Unreal game, what do you mean? What is your definition of an Unreal game?
2006, you could tell when a game was Unreal right away. Like the realistic and just the lighting, it was pretty obvious when people didn't know what to do with you could tell.
I think that was people just copying Gears of War's color palette.
Dark. I can remember some of them, but Dark Sector, a bunch of games in the mid 2000s, you could tell right away when it was Unreal. And I was kind of worried with metahuman stuff. Like, if you're using generated content by Unreal, how easily is it, or how easy is it going to be to make it visually distinct from other games? And I feel like this demo proved to me that's totally feasible. Obviously, it depends on the size of the team and the skill of the artists and technical artists, but I think that's been proven to not be a thing at this point. And also, Amy Hennig, I was disappointed she didn't get to do a Star Wars game because she is so good at reducing core ideas for genre and for economically telling stories. Like, so many of these games, the cutscenes are unbearable and so boring. So I want to see what she does with Marvel and comic book genre action adventure, kind of the same way she did with Indiana Jones adventure stuff, pulp with Uncharted. I think she will absolutely crush this.
Yeah, it's really exciting to see her back on a project that's, coming out in a year or so, maybe a little more, year and a half. But it's been too long since we've had a Amy Hennig project, or at least one that's hit the market. Seems like she's been working, but nothing really has made it out, unfortunately.
I was looking at her Wikipedia page just before, and it said she did work on Forspoken to some degree. What was her involvement with that?
There was 3 story people on it. There was a somewhat notable sci-fi person. I can't remember who they are. Then a dialogue writer, and then I think a lore. I think the fantasy sci-fi person was the lore consultant. I think Amy Hennig, don't quote me on this, I don't for sure, did like overall story ideas. And I think probably not a detailed, like, I don't think she was full-time, or this is all speculation. But from what I remember in the credits, I think she oversaw the ideas of the game, which I still think were really good. I think there was a lot of good ideas, not so great dialogue and cutscene direction. I guess I'm giving her the benefit of the doubt that she didn't work on that, but
well, she could have been like a consultant, right? If she was like between gigs, she might have been like consulting and then just getting paid big bucks to basically say, this is trash, this is okay, go this way, don't go that way. Like, probably not any, like, I'm writing individual lines of dialogue type stuff.
Yeah, definitely not dialogue. I think it was story consultant or story writer. And then the lore writer, I thought the actual fantasy ideas in that game were pretty good. It was like the actual execution that wasn't great, but I still kind of liked it. Kind of want to play it again. I just have no time. And so she can do it. I mean, I'm a little bit skeptical that the the Star Wars game never made it out. Like these Star Wars games keep getting canceled, and I just can't figure it out. The first person Respawn one got canceled. Her Star Wars game got canceled. Like these should be easy wins, as we're seeing with stuff like Fallen Order, Survivor, and the new Ubisoft Star Wars game. I don't know how, if you have enough money and a property like Star Wars, if you just copy good games and turn them into Star Wars, these things make themselves with enough money.
Yeah, I don't remember the whole story with her game, what happened there, but I assume part of it is budget, right? Like these games are pretty high budget, and if at some point you're kind of changing direction and you're trying to pivot, and at some point they're like, okay, we're cutting our losses here. But I don't know if that was the case with that one.
Yeah, so definitely looks good. 2025. I'm assuming late 2025, but
yeah. Now, have you guys looked into the whole Skydance new media company thing that she's working under? And do you know any other games they're working on? No, I'm just quickly glancing at their website. It says they team up on a new Star Wars project, but it looks like that's not really announced. And then there's another one about the Marvel one from last October, which I'm imagining is 1943.
Yeah, I mean, I know
Amy Hennig's,
Skydance is.
I was just going to say, Amy Hennig's co-president of this new media division.
Okay. Like, I know they are, like, Skydance is more like a movie production company initially, but I'm not too familiar with what, like, have they actually shipped a game yet, or?
No. So on their Wikipedia, just Marvel. On the Wikipedia, it is Marvel 1943 Rise of Hydra. And then it says TBA Star Wars game, but I thought this was the one that got canceled. But is that
I think that was the EA one.
That was EA?
Like,
okay.
Not the what was it? Not Outlaw. It wasn't called Outlaw. It was like the one about the smuggler on
Was it like Underworld or something like that? Or was that no,
I don't even know if it even had a name.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
But well, it looks like there was another division called Skydance Interactive, which did some VR stuff like The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners.
When you were talking about it, I'm pretty sure she worked a bit on some VR stuff, but I couldn't remember exactly what it was.
Not sure if that was her or not, but yeah, one thing with the game that I'm curious about, like, so Captain America, Black Panther seems like they're kind of at odds with each other in the story. I assume you get to play as both at some point in the game.
They said that in the presentation.
But there's also other characters that are like kind of non-superhero characters that I think you also get to play as, because it says an ensemble of playable characters, including Captain America and Black Panther.
Of course. I told you this 3 years ago. That's going to be the new thing in every AAA game. And we're going to be sick of it soon. Trust me.
Yeah, well, I mean, it has been a trend of like being able to play as like a secondary character. Usually there's some reveal partway through the game, but this is like, seems like, 5 or 6 characters that maybe you're switching back and forth between through the whole game, which is kind of newish.
Eternal Darkness did it first.
That's true. That is true.
All right. Is that, I don't have much else to say unless you guys have anything about like the state of Unreal that interested you or.
Well, the only thing still on the 1943, I was just looking at Skydance and looking at their job postings. And they have a lot of like character positions and animation positions, but then they have a senior network engineer and a senior systems engineer, which sort of implies like an online multiplayer game. And I don't think they mentioned multiplayer in this one, which leads me to believe that it's the Star Wars game they're hiring for. So it's that would be interesting.
Could systems just be like high level design system quests,
or I mean,
syncing with an account, like how Square Enix has like a Square Enix account that has leaderboards and rewards or something that they can steal our data and use it.
Oh yeah, you're right. Read the job posting. It's more of like IT. It's more of like server server systems. Could be just like their internal stuff more than like a game related. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, on the like in terms of the tech stuff they showed for this, the other thing that just, random thought, and I think we discussed this before, but like they were showing the environment and the different layers of, how they
Snow?
built these environments and stuff. Yeah, and it just like it was impressive, but it also made me think like that looks like a lot of work. Like, you probably are doubling your environment artist, either your team or their, how long they're
Well,
working. Like, I
I
mean,
don't know,
it's
some of the
just,
terrain building stuff.
yeah,
and
the
systems
PCG,
built
the
in-
procedural terrain generation, is really pretty powerful stuff. I mean, like I've seen some of it in action, and we don't have a big team, and it can create some pretty awesome looking stuff with pretty minimal art and pretty minimal people on it. So it's really neat that the stuff that can come out of that tool. So, if you got a big budget and can throw a lot of people at it, I bet you can make it look pretty cool. And like, adding snow, I'm sure that's just like a height map type idea where it's just like set your height map value and this is how much snow we'd add on. But it does look really impressive when they were adding the snow. It wasn't just like, just a simple thing. They were actually adding like a lot of texture and stuff to it. It looked
I don't know.
like,
I thought they said the snow was actual geometry.
yeah, but that's the nanite. That's the procedural generation part. So they add to it, but you could control like filters or knobs, right, to control how much. And I'm sure they use some sort of height map value. It may not be technically called a height map, but essentially you're saying like how deep do you want the snow to be?
Yeah,
and
yeah. I
then
get that.
and then it would create geo that high. That's what the nanite does. It's like procedural mesh building essentially. It's really neat tech.
Yeah,
So-
it's
So any junkers want to learn about it, highly recommend it.
kind of worried about Unity with some of this stuff.
I didn't. Did anyone watch the Unity? I saw there was like a Unity 6 roadmap, something that came out from Unity. I didn't watch it either. I think, yeah, I don't know. Unity is in trouble, I think, also. Especially with like they laid off so many people, and then with the whole fallout from their change in monetary structure, fallout that they had to roll back. Not a good look right now. And even just like other stuff like the Epic Store only taking 12% is very attractive.
Yeah, I don't even want to go down the road of the Epic Game Store on Apple, and like that was they're pushing that stuff hard in the lawsuit. That's how they open the state of Unreal.
Yeah,
I don't think how this is ever going to work. So,
well, that was the thing that I was surprised about, because like I didn't realize that was, I guess, settled. Is it settled? I don't know, but like they basically said like straight up, this is coming later this year, and I don't think that has happened yet, right? Like on Apple, there are no other storefronts that have been kind of legally allowed to operate in that way.
Well, they might do it like Audible does it, right? So you can look at your things you've bought, but you don't actually buy anything through the app. You have to go to the website to buy stuff so that you avoid Apple's. So like if you want to buy a book on Audible, you have to like log into Amazon through a web browser and pay for it, and then it'll show up in your iOS Audible app to get around that.
That's how like Bandcamp was, and there's lots of examples of that. But yeah, and maybe that's all they're talking about. But it seemed like I thought that was kind of the whole thing they were fighting, was like we should be able to have an app on iOS that we can sell stuff through. And
I'm sure they're working towards that on the app so that when they win, it's ready to go. And if they lose, they just flip the little switch that turns all that microtransaction stuff off. And then you can still look at your games list and wish list and all that stuff. You probably just can't buy anything. And I'm sure they're adding you can look at your achievements, right? They got achievements now for some stuff. So I'm sure it'll be like that. More like the PlayStation app minus the well, can you even buy anything on the PlayStation app? I can't remember.
I don't think so. In the app, you can?
Yeah. I buy stuff all the time, and then I download it right from my phone. So
does that mean that Does that mean Apple's taking a cut of that, or like what does that
I think
mean?
so. I think that is what it means.
All I know is I'm beaming out of this conversation. This is smooth.
Nerd alert.
I think it's interesting, but I mean, obviously we don't have all the
What
details.
are you, a corporate pinhead, dude? Who cares who's getting the money? I just want to play the games, bud.
Well, it's not about who's getting the money. Who's getting the money isn't what's interesting. Just the idea that it's now potentially you're going to sell iOS games or Android games through this thing like that. That could be a whole huge thing too.
Look, I beamed out. If it's on YouTube, someone tell me if Apple gets money when I buy through the PlayStation app. If they do, I'll only buy it through the browser. That's all I want to know.
I mean, the prices are the same, I guess. So then that seems weird, but
I will go through the channel that gives all the money to Sony. Okay. Anything else from the State of Unreal 2024 GDC presentation?
No. They showed Dune Awakening and what was the Star Wars game?
I don't know. It looks
Star Wars Hunters, but yeah, neither of them.
I guess I was wrong. You can take Star Wars and fail. But who knows? Maybe there is an audience for that. We shall see. All right. What we played. Anyone got anything? Or should I start with the big releases of the week? Unless someone else has played one of the big releases.
Oh, I think you should jump right in.
All right. I guess I'll start with my journey with Dragon's Dogma last week. So I did.
Hang on. Dragon's Dogma 1?
With the Dragon's Dogma franchise. And it will went to play in both.
Oh, okay.
So I was kind of curious, would I even like Dragon's Dogma? And I downloaded the original, which was on PlayStation Plus. I might have owned it. I'm not sure. But I was always curious what this was, heard about the pawn system and simulating multiplayer gameplay. And I kind of dug into it and played for a couple nights. It's pretty interesting. It felt like an old game. It was 2014, I think, 2013 for the original, 2014 for the remake on PS4. And this is the Arisen version, which is like kind of has DLC and everything built into it. The original was PS3, and then this one was PS4, Xbox, and PC. It was kind of reminding me of playing Bully, like the way you run around and the map and everything. It kind of felt like an old school open world game, and I was just enjoying the simplicity of that. So that's just a base reaction. In terms of like the vibe and systems, the opening cinematic and the events that happen are pretty interesting. Like I thought story-wise, it was simple and it hooked me. And the idea of the pawn system and interacting with consequence in the world, but in a slightly simplified form, I thought was pretty good. If I had literally nothing else to do in my life and no new games coming out, I would have continued playing Dragon's Dogma Arisen. Even for all the stuff that felt a bit outdated, I was having fun with it. So from what I had heard, the new game, Dragon's Dogma 2, very similar. Just kind of an updated version of that. And then once we get into Dragon's Dogma 2, which I did not start playing until today, I will say I used the character creator and created my character during the week, which was available to download. And you create a main pawn. This pawn is always with you, and you level up and give equipment, and it's like your multiplayer companion that's controlled by AI. So I created both of those, then started my game, and I think Blake had pointed this out on the Discord. The main menu and the opening splash screen do not say Dragon's Dogma 2. They say Dragon's Dogma when you play the game. Dragon's Dogma 2 is not anywhere in the EXE.
That's
so
weird.
I mean, I kind of feel like it's just Capcom saying, I have a feeling the creator just wanted this to be what they envisioned for Dragon's Dogma in an updated form. The story is not the same, but the beats are very similar. And it doesn't seem like a continuation. It seems like a reboot. So I find that pretty interesting. And it actually made me kind of glad that I abandoned the first one. And I said, okay, I'll just play the new one. And it's only 2 in store title only. it really plays like its own thing, or a reboot of the idea, a legacy sequel, if you will, something along those lines. And I've been having a lot of fun with it. It's very similar to the first game. Like a lot of tangible ideas. People are upset that you have to pay at the inn a lot. There's no fast travel. Definitely feels like something in between a modern open world action game and a very deliberate, methodical, realistic game like Red Dead Redemption 2, where like everything was like picking up your hat, all that type of stuff. This is kind of, I would put it right between those two types of games. And it's a nice little niche. The vocation system is a way of changing your class, basically. So I've only tried one vocation in like the basic warrior type with sword and shield in when I played Arisen. And then when I played 2, I'll just call it 2 to distinguish. To me, that's why they did that. So when people do Google searches for how to do things that they're completely confused by in this game, they can put Dragon's Dogma 2 and not just end up with the equivalent in the first game. And I did like a ranger, like bow and arrow type character for the second one because I want to shoot stuff. It's way more fun. And it's been pretty good. I will say it's traveling between locations now is starting to take quite a bit of time, is slightly repetitive, and the combat is a little repetitive and huge spikes in difficulty. Like I just was going on the first quest after you kind of get to the main city, and this Minotaur absolutely shredded me like 20 times. I'm like, am I supposed to be doing this? I don't even know. So I'm starting to hit a bit of like, okay, what is this exactly? What did I do wrong? What order am I supposed to do this in? So that's the first time today where I'm like, okay, I kind of want to stop playing for a little bit. But overall, really liking the game, the immersiveness, the environment's pretty fun. It's slightly old school, merged with new school, open world RPG, and I'm digging it. It feels like what I wanted Oblivion to be like when I played Oblivion, which was kind of the action is jank and some of the animations are pretty weak and pathfinding. I feel like Dragon's Dogma is what I wanted Elder Scrolls games to be for my personal play style. I know other people love those games, but this suits that type of vibe with the type of game I like to play that's more action focused. So lots of cool small ideas like climbing enemies, weaknesses for enemies. It's good. I'm really enjoying Dragon's Dogma 2.
How's the party system thing? Like that felt that was one of those things that I was like, feels like maybe there's a lot of stuff to manage there that might be annoying.
It's not as bad as I thought. The menus, that's where they feel kind of old school, like swapping stuff out. It's like really just text based, like give me this thing and give it to someone else. I haven't found that to be too cumbersome. The encumbrance system, I'm sure, will be a little annoying to some people, but I don't know why. I'm kind of okay with the tangibility of that right now in the game. I haven't had any issues. By the time I get to new cities, I think it wants you to think about what you're going to do next. And I may get bored of it or tired of this stuff later on, but for right now, I'm enjoying it. And I'm kind of really torn between 3 open world games that I've put 5 to 10 hours in. And I feel like I should just see one through to the end. And I don't know which one to see through. Those 3 being that Dragon's Dogma 2, Rise of the Ronin, and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
You know what the answer should be.
Well, it should be Rebirth, except that I replayed Remake for a week before that came out, like I always do, and ruined it for me. So I'm not quite sure which one I'm going to settle on. It's weird. My heart and my gut, so that's probably what I'm going to go with, is saying Rise of the Ronin, even though I acknowledge it's probably the worst of the 3 games, but that's the one I want to play. I'll explain it a bit when I talk about that game, but it's a little weird. I just like that combat, and it's comforting to me right now.
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes that's all. That's the important thing is, is it does it have its hooks in you, I guess, right? Like putting aside some of the technical things or innovations, it's just kind of like, is this drawing you back in every day?
Now, I swear to God, I did not, this was not a conscious thought when I made that statement. But now, after you started talking, I'm like, oh, yeah. And then there's no trophy guide yet for Dragon's Dogma 2. So it's like, am I going to screw something up? And Rise of the Ronin kind of seems like it's the shortest of them. I can just get it off my list, and it's like not complicated. So it's a good game to pick up like before I go to bed and just knock out a few things, even though it's not great. But I'll talk about Rise of the Ronin later. What do you guys got?
I can start. I started Midnight Suns came to PS Plus, or I think, or whatever it's called, PlayStation, whatever. And so I loaded that up, played about an hour, and it's not what I thought it was going to be, actually. It's very XCOM-like, but less of a focus on cover and more of a focus on like almost like choosing which moves to use in what order. And your moves are randomly,
I would say, right?
And like the environment. Yeah.
You combine those two things.
Yeah. So the mechanic of, so when you are in some of these areas of battles, it is a little weird that there's like just rocks lying around, and you can use these rocks or whatever, a couch or whatever's lying around to sort of pick up and throw. And those are like free moves, which I guess are there to reward you if you just kind of investigate the area or kind of look around and see them. It's kind of like a free attack. And also you get, I guess you would call it a deck of moves for each of your characters, and then you get 3 per round. And I find that kind of weird that so in XCOM, you have like, you get a movement turn and then an action turn. And the actions are different for each character, but you have an action set you can choose from. And in this, you're given sort of like random 3 actions for each character, not for each character, in total. And it could be, 2 for Doctor Strange, 1 for Iron Man, or 3 for Iron Man, or 1 for Captain Marvel, or some of the other characters you get. So I haven't really mastered. I feel like I'm missing something with that aspect of it. I feel like there's got to be something more like card management or something like that comes later that I don't know yet. It seems a little too, I don't know what a good word is for, like just like loose. Like I don't know what's happening. They're just kind of like giving me stuff, and I'm just like forced to choose. And I guess that's fine. But
I didn't play much, but I think you start to be able to build your deck and customize cards you take into battle. But one thing I liked about it, especially for someone like me, it really eased you into, like, it wasn't super hard. Like a lot of strategy games, I'm like failing immediately, and I'm like, what the fuck am I supposed to do? So it was like kind of this open world stuff too, and it was a nice bridge of like common systems and getting used to strategy stuff.
Yeah, so I'm very early. I'm just getting to the point where you're now kind of like walking around an area and talking to people, and it's not just battles. It's more of that open world aspect of it. So I'm still interested in it, but it's definitely not what I was expecting. So I don't know what to think about it just yet, but it is neat. The story I'm just like skipping. I am not drawn in at all by what they're talking about. It's a lot of like run-on dialogue. So I found myself skipping ahead. Though maybe I'll pull out my YouTube 2x speed trick to still get an idea of what's going on and not have to sit there for the full length of time. But yeah, it was a fun little game so far. I'm going to keep playing it. And I actually was streaming it instead of downloading it to my machine, and that was working fine. I didn't really notice any hiccups or anything like that. So
maybe Skydance knows. 1943 Rise of Hydra will be played on server farms of PCs.
I must say, I've got like Rebirth installed. Right now I've got The Order 1886 installed, and Spider-Man, some Spider-Man games still, Spider-Man 2, and I think I reinstalled Forbidden West. No, yeah, Forbidden West is the second one, and that's like all my space. and I've got a few other random smaller things. But there's not that the space on the PS5 sure goes quick when you have a bunch of these 100 plus gigabyte games you have to download. So the streaming is a nice option for some games I just want to pick up every once in a while, play for a bit, and then come back to later. So it's kind of nice.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense for a game like that, like where it's not really an action game, like it's turn-based, right? So it's kind of seems like it would work well.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, that was like, just one of those games came out at the end of the year, kind of got lost in the shuffle. I liked what I played of it, never went back to it. I don't know if I ever will, but it was pretty cool from what I remember. So speaking of games I probably won't go back to, I tried out Lightyear Frontier. This is just launched on Game Pass. What's their early access thing called? Game Preview or whatever.
Yes.
And I believe it is early access on Steam as well. But I had been seeing some stuff about it, was kind of curious. It's generally not my kind of genre. It's a farming, crafting type game, but it's not a survival game. I think that's what kind of, I was like, oh, okay, I'll give this a shot, just because it seemed like there's no real combat. People talked about how it's kind of this chill, kind of laid back game, but there is some exploration. And so basically you're on this alien planet, you have a mech, and you're exploring the environment and kind of cleaning up certain zones and then building things. I only put a couple hours into it, and it was kind of like Power Wash Simulator-y in terms of the actual mechanics. Like, it was just something that it's easy to just kind of like zone out, and an hour's gone by and you don't really realize it. But I do have to admit, I don't know if there's enough kind of meat to really keep me playing. Like, there is this hint of like there's these artifacts on the planet, and there's these kind of ruins that seem to there's some mystery there. But I don't know if there's really any puzzle stuff. Like, I don't know. It is a little bit repetitive, I guess. So I don't know. If you're into those kind of games, like, you definitely check it out. I don't know. It was something that didn't immediately turn me off, but yeah, I don't know if there was enough to keep me playing.
Yeah, you mentioned this game the other day, and I'm like, what is this turd? And I looked it up, and I was like, this is a turd. This is terrible.
I mean, the crafting games are huge. This is what everyone wants to play these days. So I think there is an audience for it.
I would say one crafting game is huge. Like, what it competes with Minecraft.
I mean, just this year alone, there's been.
Oh, do you mean like survival games like Valheim and?
Yeah, all that kind of stuff. Like, I don't have much interest in those games, but yeah, that just seems like that's where the game industry is at right now.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's at the tail end of that. A bunch of people tried making them, and even though I think like that, I've heard that Nightingale game is pretty good, and some other ones, but not my cup of tea. But definitely better than what I remember Ark being in some of those other games. So they've gotten better. All right, so Rise of the Ronin, new Team Ninja open world game, exclusively on the PS5. It is basically open world Neo. It's exactly what I thought it was going to be. It's taking all the systems of Neo and putting it in an open world map. The open world map design, pretty much what you'd expect, following the blueprints of old Ubisoft games and other popular open world games. The horse riding is fast and appreciated. The glider is pretty good, modeled mostly after Breath of the Wild. Combat is very comforting to me. I understand the combat system, but it's already starting to get repetitive. So, I mean, it doesn't have the pizzazz of, at least at this point, Neo, with like the crazy bosses and fantasy elements. It's like rooted in reality. So it's a little less spectacle to me. And I mean, some of the voice acting and conversation stuff is pretty bad. But overall, it's just kind of a comforting play for me. I understand. I feel like a 7, 8, 8.5 max feels like fair reviews. I think the Metacritic was like 75, maybe a little higher at this point, 78. That seems about right. But if you like Neo, which I do, it's a pretty fun open world game. Taking those elements and putting them in a historic Japan setting is pretty good. Still has the same issues with inventory management and having to sell and destroy stuff all the time, constantly equipping new stuff. It really is just Neo. But I guess I'm okay with that. But if you're like thinking, I feel like most people would be better off playing Ghost of Tsushima or Sekiro or even Neo to some degree. It's just, if you really like those Team Ninja games, buy it. If you don't think you really need to rush out and get it.
Yeah, I read something that I thought they said that the parry mechanic, or like there isn't a parry mechanic, it's like a counterattack thing, or there's something different about it that seemed like some people were kind of divided on.
I like it. It's I'm getting used to it, but I feel like when I do it right, there's some edge cases that I'm like, that might have been my fault or so, but as I'm getting used to that, it's pretty good. It's very similar to the counter system in Neo, but it's much simpler. It's just a single button press, triangle. And sometimes you have to do it in repetition, which I think was kind of how it worked in Sekiro with multiple attacks. So it's kind of a hybrid of those two systems, and I dig it. It's pretty good.
Cool.
Yeah, it's good. It's kind of like this year's Forspoken for me, I think. I'm going to do everything in it, and I'm like, nobody really likes this game, and I want to put it on my top 10 list, but probably won't.
Yeah. And is the open world more like Assassin's Creed, or is it more like Ghost of Tsushima, where it's more, there's not like as much climbing and stuff?
More like just valleys and stuff like that. And you have a grapple hook, which is similar to Sekiro. So I would say more Ghost of Tsushima for sure. Like way more.
Okay.
I haven't really climbed anything, I don't think. I'm just jumping up. You can't climb unless you use the grappling.
Okay, because I know I saw like hang gliders or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's
and you
later.
can use launch points with your grappling hook to kind of launch you into the air with your glider too.
So it's like Batman.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. So, I mean, they're using kind of tried and true open world mechanics. There's nothing revolutionary. So it's like, yeah, if you like the world and the combat, it's good. But I will say already, a lot of debate as to whether like 2023, one of the best years for gaming, 2024 was going to be the worst, terrible year for games. Hot take. I already think 2024 is better than 2023. I've played better games already this year than I did last year. I think Balatro, Prince of Persia, and possibly Rebirth would have been somewhere in my top 4 last year.
Yeah, I'm feeling 2024 is not looking great for me personally. Just
Sorry,
not my
playing.
kind of stuff.
What's that stupid crafting game you played, dude?
Yeah, it's not
Lightyear Frontier.
I'll tell you that.
Helldivers. Helldivers will probably be higher than would be number 2 last year if I keep playing it the way I am.
Helldivers is good, no question. But I mean, I heard a theory like that, with the PS5 Pro rumors that they're holding back on some of the Sony releases that are supposed to come out this year, whether it's for later in the year to coincide with that launching or even for next year. I'm not sure, but it seems like a possibility to me because right now I'm like, what's the big Sony games for this year? But
my guess will be they will launch 1 month before the Switch 2 says it's going to come out. So they'll have them ready to go and they will try to beat them to the punch. They'll release PS5 Pro holiday season no matter what, and then line up those games to beat a couple 1-2 punches to go head to head with the Switch 2 before they actually launch. That's what I do if I was running Sony.
Yep. Cool.
last stuff for me, I still working on Rebirth. I haven't done really anything story wise. I'm just kind of picking up the stuff around the open world, fighting things, looking up places, just kind of mopping up all
Sniffing
the
things
little,
in the ground with your chocobo.
yeah, just finding all the little doodads they put on the map, going to the mall. And I do see the fast travel now. You could totally game it now. You don't need to use the cushions. You just basically fast travel to somewhere with a bench and then fast travel back wherever you need to go. So that kind of breaks it for me a bit in terms of the difficulty curve of the game and actually needing to balance your items and your magic points. But at the same time, it's not really that fun and you don't get that much money from grinding to be able to buy a lot of items and be able to use them in a battle. So it's not really that enjoyable. I don't mind going back and healing and then going where I'm meant to go.
Oh, I'm kind of the opposite, where it's really cheap and common items to craft the cushions. So I'm like, I
Okay.
might as well craft a bunch of cushions and just use them rather
Sure.
than
Okay.
teleporting them.
I haven't quite got there yet. I made a mistake and I had all this ore from fighting people and I forgot that there were multiple categories in the item mutator thing. And so in the first category, nothing used ore. So I was like, what the hell am I going to use this for? I just sold it all. And then I finished all of the things I had leveled up to and I couldn't do any new ones until I leveled up. And I realized I hadn't done the other categories of making your items and your weapons. And then I looked and all those use a shit ton of ore. So I was like, oh, damn it. Now I got to grind for ore again. But the other thing I bought in the Steam sale, which I wanted to mention, is I bought the DLC for the Case of the Golden Idol. So I started on the first case and I haven't beaten it yet, but they're just so good at crafting these puzzles and they're just so interesting. And, it's amazing how subtle they are with the clues, but how obvious they are to figure out. Like in the one I'm doing, there's like this card game and there's a scoreboard and they hide so there's a bunch of tables with these card games going on and there's like a murder that occurs. And then you have to try to figure out who's who based on what games they were at. And, you kind of figure out what the card values are based on the win-loss ratios. And there's all this really, really elegant, subtle deduction you have to do that I'm just so impressed with in this game. And the fact that they could put out the first game and then have enough ideas to put out a second, two DLC packs pretty quickly after, I think is pretty impressive actually. And after playing the 2 DLC packs and seeing how it hasn't fallen off from what I remember the other ones, what the original being, I'm really excited for Case of the Golden Idol 2. I think
Rise of the Golden Idol.
Oh, sorry, Rise of the Golden Idol. Right, of course. So yeah, I think I bought a couple other things on the Steam sale that I haven't got a chance to play. So I'll talk about those if I get a chance to play them. But a lot of them are narrative driven games that I bought. That's it for me.
Anything else for you, Sean?
Yeah, I started playing qomp 2, QOMP 2. I'd played the first game a couple years ago.
2? That's what you're playing?
Yeah, it's good. But I had played the first one and it was pretty short, but it was a cool idea that I really liked. Basically, it's like Pong, but if the ball kind of escaped from the main play area and then kind of went on an adventure. And so you're controlling this ball throughout, these levels with like spikes and things moving. And really, you only have one button pressed to change direction. That's really all you can do. But this game adds some additional powers to it. But the one thing that was interesting is like the original game was just this indie game. I can't remember what the studio was. I'm
pretty sure it's the guy that did that one where you're in that like black cuddle, Bennett Foddy. I think it was that guy that did qomp, the original qomp.
No, not qomp. This is a
Qomp.
different thing than
yeah,
qomp.
Yeah.
I can
my
understand the
mistake.
confusion. But
Wasn't that, but I do want to apologize to Sean because I looked up Qomp 2 and it looks pretty cool, actually.
yeah. So, but like the interesting thing is that Atari, I think, bought the rights to this because they were like, "Hey, we own Pong. We'll take this on." And so it's like I think it's a different development team, and it's actually like branded Atari. But it's weird that they didn't put the Pong name anywhere in there. They still called it Qomp. And like I don't know, it's weird what Atari's even doing right now. Like I know they've done these kind of like remix versions of some of their classic games, but there's a few other sort of weird retro games that there was one called like Mr. Run and Jump, which was like a platformer that they published, and then there's something else. I
You're
think
thinking of that. I just want to say Atari, they must have bought Qomp 1 because it's now published by Atari on Steam. So I don't know if back and bought the rights to everything and republished it.
Yeah, I think that's right. Which it's kind of interesting. But yeah, I mean, it still feels kind of like the first game, and I think it's a bigger, longer game. So yeah, I'm looking forward to playing it more.
Do you guys know Atari? I'm just looking at Atari on Steam. They re-released Hardball 1 and 2 in February. Those old PC baseball games.
Did not know that.
Oh my God.
Where's Base Wars at? We need some Base Wars.
Oh,
Where are
yeah.
the fun sports games?
That would be
Yeah,
good.
that Qomp game looks pretty neat. Sean, I deeply apologize for.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, it's quirky little indie game, but yeah, I recommend it.
Play some real games, dude, once in a while. Spend some cash.
Think about it. Trust me, I thought about both Dragon's Dogma and Rise of the Ronin. I was just like $90 and for a game that I don't even know if is my kind of game, probably not going to do it.
What's happened to Sean?
He's bought a lot of games that aren't
He's bought a lot of games.
Money.
I'll throw $20-$30 to an indie developer, but $90 for something that's AAA, it's not my thing. Can't do it.
Be like me. Go to the old library, put it on reserve, save that 90.
It's a good
Not bad strategy.
Yep.
All right. Is that it? That's it for me.
I think that's it.
Okay. Well, that'll do it for today's show. You can watch us on youtube.com/Game Junk. Leave comments there. Discord link if you want to join the conversation over there. You can find that on youtube.com/Game Junk. Next week, who fucking knows? I don't know what's going on. Does anything come out next week? Maybe Sean will play Princess Peach by then. I don't know.
I will not. Although I think reviews actually were
not bad.
Positive.
Like your kids don't want it?
No. I was playing the demo and I was like, you guys want to try this? They're like, nope.
Weird. I kind of want to buy it, but it was just so slow. I'm like, I just don't think I can do it. There's too much stuff to play.
Yeah.
I'm like, do I want to just buy some vouchers? Those vouchers just burn a hole in my pocket. And then I'm like, okay, if you go to Costco, you can buy a $100 card for less, then use that card to buy the vouchers. And then you can really talk yourself into buying some really stupid stuff on Nintendo. That's the kind of economic gymnastics you need to be doing.
What about South Park Snow Day comes out?
I thought that was out already.
No, comes out Tuesday, I believe.
I mean, we'll see what reviews are like, but no thanks. It's $40, I'm assuming.
30 Canadian.
Okay. Must be really bad. Okay, that'll do it. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching or listening. Bye-bye.